Hi, welcome to the Set Apart podcast. I'm your host, Abby Garcia, and if you are tuning into this episode of Set Apart, this is going to be a pretty special episode that may look a little bit different than the others, but in honor of Mother's Day this past weekend, I have asked a few incredible moms that I know a few questions, and I hope that their answers will just be life-giving for you, moms that are tuning in, new moms, moms to be. So the very first question that I asked them was, what is one of the most rewarding parts of motherhood for you?
I would say that the most rewarding part of motherhood for me is just getting to see my daughter grow. I love seeing how she learns new skills and not necessarily developmental milestones, but just funny things like turning on the light switches, all the way to being able to articulate different Bible stories and all that good stuff. It's awesome to get to see how just the everyday mundane investments that I get to make in her life by playing with her and reading to her and singing to her really do have lasting impact in her life and help her to grow. And so that's been really rewarding for me.
So I would have to say one of the most rewarding parts of motherhood for me is realizing how capable I am. For anybody who knows me, knows that I love sleep. I love a lot of sleep. I love napping. And I was worried on how I would handle sleepless nights and around the clock feedings. But with God's help and with the help of Jonathan, my husband, we made it. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm so thankful. Sometimes I look back and I can't even believe we made it through, but we made it. And I'm so thankful. And it helped me realize that I can do hard things, especially when I'm not doing them alone. So Kate Winslet has a quote, and it says, "There's something really empowering about going, I can do all of this." That's the wonderful thing about mothers. You can because you must, and you just do it.
So the most rewarding part of motherhood for me has been getting to watch my boys grow into the most amazing adults and become such amazing individuals that have just astonished me in the way that they've grown. I've also enjoyed being a mom who is like a chef and a chauffeur and a nurse and all of the things during their childhood. And now that they're adults, I get to kind of slide into a friendship role as well. So that has probably been the most rewarding part of motherhood for me.
The most rewarding part of motherhood for me would have to be seeing my children grow in the Lord and just watching them discover their calls that they have on their lives. Being able to wake up to them every morning and just see new things in their personality changing and flourishing.
So I think the most rewarding part of being a mom is seeing your children, take on their own faith and own it for themselves. It's not something that they are doing strictly to please you or out of obligation to you, but they are actually owning it. They're walking in it. They're walking out their love for God and their love for people. And seeing that develop in your children, to me, has probably been one of the most rewarding things in motherhood.
The most rewarding thing as a mother, I would say learning about a love that I didn't know I was capable of. And yet, God loves me way more than that. I mean, I remember having my first child and just couldn't believe how instantly I just was just crazy for her. And I just remember just blown away that I was like, wow, God, your love is so much more than that. So just learning about our Father in heaven, his love for us and how great it is through motherhood has been huge.
One of the most rewarding parts of motherhood has really been watching my son grow from a newborn into a toddler. I think that is the most beautiful thing that I've seen so far, even with going through the terrible twos. It's just hard. It's so crazy to look back and see how I grew this beautiful little baby boy for 9 months inside of me. And he has blossomed into this full bundle of joy. and getting to see him grow in his personality every day and learning new things and getting to see those new things and experience those with him has been the most rewarding part of motherhood.
For me, one of the most raw parts of motherhood has been parenting out of obedience to the Lord rather than out of my own insecurity and out of qualities that I'd like to change in myself that I see being passed down to my children. When I remember that I've just been entrusted my children, that these kids are the Lord's. Yes, I did everything I could to bring them into the world, and yes, I'm doing everything I can to raise them well. That's not the end all be all. The end all be all is that they are in heaven, that they are bringing as many people to heaven with them, and that they are developing a unique, independent, deep, passionate relationship with Christ. And so I say it's raw because naturally, when you watch your children grow, you start to see things from yourself that you've passed on to your children. And it is difficult sometimes to see that on display in someone else. And so remembering that I am not needed to change them, I am needed to shape them. And that the Lord loves me too, and He loves those quirky little tidbits in me that He sees in my children. Those all matter. They all equal out to the person that God is calling them to be.
For me, I would have to agree with all of the ladies who talked about how it's been incredible to watch your little one that you grew on the inside of you really grow into their own person and see their own personality develop, and even watching them grasp the small things. So I'm only a year and a half into this thing, but it has been so cool to watch my son. Even when we say praise the Lord, he knows to lift his hands. And I know that it's very small things that he's catching on to, like whenever his favorite worship song comes on, he gets so excited and starts trying to air drum to it. But just having those small moments as a parent that where you see them finally start to understand things, and maybe they don't understand the depth of the song or understand the depth of what praising the Lord really means and looks like, but it is setting a foundation for us to have very serious conversations later on in his life. So it's been super cool to watch even the very small moments of him starting to understand things a little bit better. So the next question that I have asked them is, what has been one of the most challenging parts of motherhood for you?
I would say it has challenged every selfish bone in my body from like the first week of pregnancy. It just, everything about you. And God just shows you how much more there is to life than focusing on self. And it has challenged me in the most beautiful way, and wondering how I live my life. Is it for me or is it for others? And even at this point, is it just for my family or is it also for others? So taking it further after that.
Definitely the most challenging has been these sleepless nights, being extremely exhausted and still trying to go to work. As a working mom, it's difficult just to keep up with all of those challenges. But at the end of the day, I'm there to help support him and help for him to live the best life that he can. So I have to look at it that way.
Motherhood has challenged me in a lot of ways. There's something about children that bring out a side of you that you didn't know that you had, good and bad. It's really challenged me with my patience, and to be slow to anger, quick to listen. Those are probably the biggest things. I need to learn when to listen to them and try to keep my cool.
Motherhood challenges me to get out of my own selfishness. I think, All of us start out in life as really pretty selfish people. Kind of absorbed with our own needs and our own wants. But once you have a child, you really have to lay that down. And laying down that selfishness and truly being able to lay your life down for someone else, I think that is probably, for me, the biggest challenge of being a mom is just laying all of that, your own selfishness down.
A lot, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of them. But for me, emotionally has been the biggest change. I was never really a very emotional person. And it's funny because just thinking about her, looking at her in the monitor, listening to a song can bring me to tears. And it's really a beautiful thing. And I'm thankful to experience that part of motherhood and femininity. Um, Also, spiritually, it's been a beautiful thing. I have found my quiet time in the morning when I'm giving her her morning bottle, and we just sit there and listen to the Bible and listen to a devotional. And it's just a really special time that I enjoy every day. Physically, I remember seeing Nicole Beckett at church, like wrangling her son Nathan. And I thought, how in the world? She's doing this with such ease. And now I see it. I realize that the strength comes with the job. And as they get bigger, you get stronger. And I feel physically, I feel the strongest I've ever been in my entire life. So going back to work was challenge for sure. I felt in my heart that there was no better or bigger job than being her mom and being Jonathan's wife. And that's what I wanted to do. And then I realized that God can call us to multiple jobs. And part of my calling is to be with the patients at Medina Hospital and taking care of them and loving on them. And it just makes coming home to her that much sweeter. And I hope that as she grows, she can see her mom works really hard. So she could have a roof over her head and things like that. So I hope she can see in the future that I went to work and I work hard for her um, to provide and to love on her and give her the things that she needs. So yeah, a lot of challenges, but thankful that God continues to bring me through all of them.
Oh goodness, how has it not? It has changed every part of me. I remember reading, I believe it's 1 Timothy 2:15, says a woman will be saved through childbirth. And basically it goes on to say, your love, your different qualities will be saved through childbirth. And I remember being so challenged by that, especially in the season of waiting to get pregnant and dealing with infertility and struggles with becoming pregnant. I just didn't understand what it could possibly mean. But on the other side of that, now having children and now raising them, I see that what that means is that the Lord shapes us and refines us through our obedience to Him in the parenthood journey and the motherhood journey. And so how has the Lord changed me? How many minutes do you have? He has made me more patient. He has made me more caring. I am absolutely 1,000% more compassionate. I feel like I have a deeper understanding of His love for me and for His people. As a result of motherhood, I have been changed and completely remade simply by the existence of my children and meeting them and seeing what it looks like to love someone in a completely different way than I've ever loved anyone else in the world.
Say motherhood has challenged me more than anything in my life, and I do not take that for granted, and I also wouldn't change a thing about it. And so I would say one of the biggest challenges of motherhood for me is learning my different capacities in different seasons of life. So I am a doer. I love to complete tasks. I love to do things. I love to be busy. And becoming a mom really changed my perspective about what productivity looks like, and realizing sometimes the best and the most productive thing I can do during that day is hold my baby, and learning to not just accept that, but enjoy it. And so, learning my capacity in different seasons of motherhood has probably been the biggest challenge for me so far.
One of the ways that motherhood has really challenged me is in a way that I didn't really expect it to. It's just been that I love my boys so much. And when you see them hurting or you see them struggling, you always want to be the one to be there to help them and pick them up and lift them up, which is a great thing and you should do sometimes. But also knowing when to back off and let them learn lessons, and sometimes letting them walk through things that are a little hard so that they can make it to the other side and become beautiful adults that know how to handle things. So I think just the most challenging part for me has been knowing when to be there and when to back off just a little bit so that they have the chance to grow.
I love that a few women touched on the topic and challenge that it is to not be selfish in motherhood, because Lord, when you are tired, when you have had a long day with the kids, I mean, come on, we all have it. It is hard, and it's very humbling to know how selfish we can sometimes be. But really knowing that before kids, we were able to do all the things that we wanted to do when we wanted to do them. And then suddenly you have a kid and all of their needs, all of their wants, all of their desires are put in your primary focus. And so it has been so challenging and very humbling to see just the areas that I have struggled with selfishness, and how the Lord has really grown me in those areas, and just working to be as fully present with my son as I can be, despite the selfish desires of maybe sometimes wanting to be lazy on the couch. Let's be honest. But another thing that I remember being a big challenge for me was learning to be secure and confident in the decisions that I was making for my kid, because early on, I remember there being a lot of different voices on this is what you should do, this is what you should not do, this is what you should give your kid, this is what you should not give your kid, and ultimately being super secure and confident that the reason why I'm making these decisions is because I love my kid and I want what's best for him. And I know my kid best. And so being confident in that, because comparison is such a real thing in parenthood. And it was something that was super challenging for me to not look at, well, they're doing this for their kid. They're putting their kid down at this time at night. And this is what their nighttime routine looks like. And this is what they're feeding their kid, all the things. But really being secure and finding confidence that I do want what's best for my kid. And because of that, the decisions that I'm making is out of that love. And I needed to be secure and confident in that. So that was super challenging for me. But the next question that I asked the ladies was, if you could give one piece of advice to a new mom, what would it be?
One piece of advice that I would give a new mom is enjoy every single moment. You are going to get so many people telling you all of these ridiculously terrifying stories, or these difficult journeys, or oh, treasure them now, they're little for a season. And that's true, it's absolutely true, but every season is special. Every moment matters. Celebrate it all. Find every opportunity to throw a party and have a blast, because the truth is they do grow up and things do change and life does carry forward, and there will be parts that you miss and there will be parts that you treasure maybe just a little bit more than others. But if you come to the other side of your parenting and you can say, I was fully present, completely active, and totally dedicated to every moment, you will have no regrets. So enjoy every moment, celebrate every opportunity, throw as many parties as you can. It's such a wonderful thing to happen to you.
The piece of advice that I would give a new mom, or really any mom, is that comparison truly is the thief of joy. Maybe you've heard that in, a social media reel or something like that. But I remember having my daughter, and I struggled really, really severely with postpartum depression. And other than going to doctor's appointments, I never left my house. And so I remember being on social media and seeing moms that had kids the same time I did. They were out at restaurants, they were on vacation, and I was just devastated because I couldn't understand why I couldn't do those things too. And my piece of advice would simply just be that uh, you're different than them. I'm different than them, right? Your baby is not the same as their baby. And how you feed your baby may not be the same as how someone else feeds their baby. And your spouse is different than their spouse. And your in-laws are different than their in-laws. Your parents are different than their parents. There's so many things that contribute to our ability to do things as moms. And so it's not fair. It's not an equal playing field ever. We all have different situations. Our births were different. Our stories are different. Our upbringings were different. Our support systems are different. But most importantly, I think it's important to realize that my calling is different than her calling, right? And so as I look at women and moms online and in my life, I have had to learn to celebrate them and not to compare myself to them. And as long as I am doing what God has asked me to do, staying in my lane with my blinders on, I'll be content. And so to the mom out there, just realize that you can't compare yourself to another mom that you see, for better or for worse, because we don't know what's going on in everybody's life. And there's so many things that contribute to our ability as moms. And so let's be content and even find joy in the season that God's called us in. And if that means you're like me and you're postpartum 2 months before you go outside for something other than a doctor's appointment, then we own that. And if that means that you're on vacation with your 3-day-old baby, then awesome. Rock that out too, But I think if we learn to lean in and just own where we're at, I think we will find a lot more joy in especially the early seasons of motherhood.
There's lots of advice, so much advice. And I give so much advice to my own kids, of course, because they are new moms. But I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give to any mom is to keep your kids involved in church. Keep them in proximity to Christian community, because you need that. We are truly better together. And when we try to do life alone and we teach our kids that we can do our life alone, whether it be Christianity or whatever, then we kind of get into some dangerous territory. And we give the enemy really opportunity to deceive us, to mislead us, to trip us up, and all the stuff. So if some of the best advice I would give to any mom is keep your kids involved in church, in a healthy church.
Piece of advice I would give to a new mom would definitely be to give yourself grace and to remember that God has called you here for such a time as this. You're not always going to have all the right answers. You're going to fall short. You're going to get it wrong. But it's the grace of God that saves us from that. And I thank Him daily that I don't have to rely on myself to raise these 2 children that He has blessed me with.
A piece of advice that I would give to a new mom would be, number one, to put your child in a church atmosphere where people can help you raise them and help you love them and be there for all the things to show them love and support. And then also just have that really good, firm foundation of faith that will take them through the rest of their lives. Also, I think when they're a newborn, a great piece of advice is to vacuum and do all of the loud things while they're napping so that they get used to noise and that they are not easily awoken.
So there's lots. There's a lot of advice. There's a lot you don't know, and it's okay. I found myself going down the rabbit hole of worry a lot. Is she meeting her milestones? Is she doing things right? Are we feeding her right? Is this right? Is that right? Um, we can't let anybody else watch her because no one's going to love her more than us. And the list goes on and on and on. And my dear husband, I love him so much. Sometimes he brings the practical side of things to me. But I remember the day we dedicated her at church to the Lord. And it was that moment where we realized she's God's girl. This is God's girl. And ultimately, he loves her even more than we do. And he's going to take care of her. And that she is in his hands and in his perfect will. So anytime I start worrying about practically anything, my husband will tell me, Dee Dee, she's God's girl. We dedicated her to him, and he is in control of her life. And it gives me a lot of peace knowing that it's not just all on me, but God has her in his hands. And it really does give me a lot of peace.
One piece of advice I would give to a new mom is to not be so hard on yourself. The dishes can come later, the laundry can come later. You don't have to be this most perfect mom, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom. I was doing that for a couple of months there, and it's really difficult, especially if you have a clingy baby. You can't do all of those things. So taking care of a child in itself is very difficult. So don't be so hard. I hate to see mothers so hard on themselves, because I know I was when chores around the house don't get done. As long as your child is safe and is growing the way that they need to, that's the best. You're doing your best.
One piece of advice that I would give to a new mama is there's grace. I remember wanting to be a part of everything still and a part of serving. And I just had 3 babies at home, little ones, and just feeling so guilty that I didn't do more for God or for the church. And it was breaking me. And it was just this religious thing that I felt like I had to do. And God just, when I would sit with him, he'd just say, you're doing the right thing. You are pouring into your family. And when it's time, I will raise you up and I'll put more on your plate. But right now you are doing what I'm asking you to do. And so giving yourself grace, and I can say that, but sometimes you just got to learn that. And there's seasons that God calls us to invest in our family. And then there's seasons that he calls us to serve outside of our family. So my advice would just say, take the steps. Yearly, I would ask God, like, okay, I have my children, but who else specifically do you want me to be pouring into? And he would give me like specific names of people that are already kind of around me. And sometimes it'd be an unbeliever and sometimes it'd be a believer, just mentoring them, pouring into their life, being their friend. So that would be my one advice. It's grace and walking with him and letting him lead you daily, weekly, yearly.
I love this question so much because as somewhat of a new mom, something that I would tell a brand new mom is that you do not have to do it all on your own, and it does not make you weak to ask for help. In fact, taking the time to take care of yourself or make yourself a healthier version of yourself, you then are making yourself a healthier version of a mom for that baby to be able to experience. And other people do want to love your baby as well. I know that there is no love that can compare to a mom's love. I get it. But there are other people in your life that really do want to love your child and don't see it as just a burden or inconvenience when you ask them. I know that was something that I struggled with a ton, was that if me and my husband needed to go on a date night, or I needed to have a little bit of time for some self-care, I would see it as a burden or inconvenience for other people to have to watch my son. But in having a nephew recently, I realized that I want to be able to love on him. I see it as an honor to be able to hold him and love him well. And so I really do believe that other people in your life want to be able to love your child, love your children well, and it makes for a well-rounded, well-loved baby when they are not only loved on by their parents, but they're loved on by all the people that are in your life who really love you as a mom as well. So the last question that I asked the moms were, how has having a child changed your perspective on how the Lord sees you?
Wow, that's such a great question. How the Lord sees me through the eyes of being a parent myself. Um, I think it's really helped me understand the Lord's unconditional love for us. That, you know what, no matter what my kids do, I'm still going to love them. They're still my kids. I'm still going to go to bat for them every time. Now behind closed doors, I may have a word of correction for them, but I'm going to have their backs, and I'm going to support them and love them unconditionally. And that's really taught me a lot about how the Father is with us. And also, another thing is that God gives us space to grow and grace to grow. He doesn't expect us to get it all right from the beginning. He gives us the grace to, you know what, when we're learning how to walk, we stumble sometimes, we get tripped up, we fall, you know, but as we grow, we become more secure and we don't make those same mistakes over and over. And God gives us that same grace to grow. And I think I've learned a lot about His grace and His unconditional love through being a parent myself. Because, I don't expect my kids to be spiritually where I am now, you know, while they are young, you know. Um, but I do expect them to be growing, and they are. And that's a beautiful thing, just having the grace and the space to grow.
A way that motherhood has changed my perspective about the way that the Lord sees us is, number one, and I heard this a lot even before I was a mom, of how great God's love is for us. And I've seen that since becoming a mom, just realizing that unconditional love. And I'm an imperfect human, and I feel like I love my baby unconditionally. She can do whatever, and I will never stop loving her. And how much more that's amplified and elevated with the perfect love of a perfect father. And so that has blown my mind continually since becoming a mom a couple years ago. And with that, I would also say the gift and the lovingness of discipline. I've seen that as well, that God sets parameters and boundaries in our lives, and that's loving, right? I don't let my daughter run out into the street. I don't let my daughter do things that she wants to do because I know that it will harm her. And so I have loving boundaries, and there's consequences, obviously, naturally, and implied if she doesn't uphold those boundaries, right? And so I've seen now, since becoming a mom, that's actually incredibly loving. It would not be loving for God to let us do whatever we wanted, however we wanted to do it. It would be so harmful and we wouldn't even see it coming. And so I've thanked God since becoming a mom for the boundaries that He's put in our lives to protect us and to really make sure that we're safe and we're healthy and we are, taken care of. And so that's me.
Having children has changed my perspective on how the Lord sees me by just realizing that I need some extra grace. I'm not what my shortcomings are. I'm a child of God. when my children do something wrong, I don't focus for weeks and hours and endless amounts of time on what they did wrong. We have a conversation about it. We talk about it. There's forgiveness and we move past that. And if I'm that way with my earthly children, how much more does my Father in heaven care about me? We're not called to get it right. We're not called to have everything all together. If that was the case, we wouldn't need to rely on His grace and His mercy all the time. So it definitely puts into perspective for me the grace that I need to have for myself, and the love that He has for me, regardless of what I've done.
How has having a child changed how I understand that the Lord sees me? Oh, I think this is the best part of motherhood. I really do. I remember the very first moment that my very first child was placed on my chest right after birth, and I just remember being completely remade. I remember in that moment feeling a love I had never felt before, a connection I had never had before, just the most overwhelming joy that I could ever imagine. It was more than words can express. It was a better experience than I could ever explain. I was remade. I was rewired and I was changed. And I just think when I look at my children, and I remember every moment those moments when I first met each one, and even now, meeting them again each day because they're changing so fast, my love grows in the most exponential ways. And if I love my children that much, the Lord loves them all the more. And if the Lord loves them, He loves me. And that just blows my mind because I know how much I love my babies. And that pales in comparison to His love for them, which ultimately means it pales in comparison to His love for me. And so how has that changed how I understand that the Lord sees me? I never knew how much He loved me. And I remember always trying so hard to earn His love, to earn right standing with Him. I understood in my brain that salvation was freely given. I understood the work of the cross. I understood what Jesus did. And then a baby was put on my chest, and I understood what deep, meaningful, compassionate, unabiding love looks like. And now I understand in my heart, beyond my head, Jesus paid it all on the cross. It's freely given. I don't have to do anything to earn it. It is mine simply because I'm His. Motherhood has changed me. Motherhood remade me. Motherhood is the greatest gift I've ever been given apart from salvation. And it's all because truly it has deepened my relationship with Christ in a way that is unmatched. And so motherhood is my greatest treasure. And it is my greatest blip of how much He loves me.
So I remember hearing in my life, there's nothing like the love of a mother. There's nothing like a love of a father. There's nothing like loving a child. And I remember thinking to myself, sure, I'm sure it's similar to the love you have for other things, but it's for real. Like, I love my daughter, and the love I have for her is so overwhelming. I want the absolute best for her. And then I have to think, God loves us even more than that. And it's really hard for me to wrap my head around it, but it's also kind of comforting that I, in my own humanity, can love my daughter with such an overwhelming love. How much more is He able to love us and to love me? And it's such a beautiful thing. And I'm so thankful I get to experience it. And I never thought I could, but here I am. So I'm so thankful.
Having a child has really changed the way that I view the Lord's love for me as a person. Before having kids, I just didn't really understand the love of a mom as I do now. From the very first moment that my child was placed on my chest for the very first time, I have never felt a love so strong and so pure than I did in those 2 moments with my boys. And to just think about how the Lord loves each and every one of us in that same way, and that he cares for us and he sees us through all of our hard times and all of our good times, and he shares in all of our emotions and has the best intentions for us. Just really, really puts in perspective what love truly, truly is. And I'm so thankful to be the daughter of a king.
The way having Rowan changed my perspective on how the Lord sees me is patience. You've learned to have more patience, and it's difficult, and especially when your child tells you no a million times and they don't listen to you. That's kind of how the Lord looks at you when he tells you, calls you to certain things that he wants you to do. So that's how I look at it is, we can relate to the Lord in that way when he looks at us and we don't listen to him, just as our child doesn't listen to us when we ask them to do the things that we need them to do. But more than anything, I love being a mother, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And I am very blessed that God has been bestowed that gift upon me.
Sees me. Yeah, like I said earlier, I am in awe of the amount of love you have for a child, and his great love is so much more.
So many incredible responses, and I fully agree. When I look into the eyes of my perfect gift of a child, it is so overwhelming to even begin to think about the fact that the love that I have for my child is only a small fraction of how my Heavenly Father really views me and really sees me, because I don't even know if it's something that we will ever fully understand or ever fully grasp. But in becoming a mom and having that unconditional kind of love that is so instant for someone, I think that it has given me an idea of just how much he really does love me, and he really does value me, and he really does see me as a mom and as a daughter and just as me, because that's how I see my son. He doesn't have to do anything for me to love him. He doesn't have to say all the right things for me to love him any more or any less, but he can just be, and I am so in love with him. And so if you are a mom listening, if you are a new mom, if you are a mom to be, I just pray that you feel valued. I pray that maybe you got some good advice from these incredible moms, and that you feel seen, not just by us, but by your Heavenly Father. If you are a stay-at-home mom, if you are a working mom, the Lord sees you. The work that you do as a mom does not go unnoticed, but it is fully seen by Him. And so happy Mother's Day to you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Set Apart. My prayer is that it was able to speak to your heart in a new and fresh way. If you want to continue to journey with us, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on all things Set Apart. And if this video impacted you, please like the video and comment below. Let us know what spoke to your heart and how we can be praying for you. See you next time.